at first I was just doing this because I figured it'd make me a better photographer, but I got hooked and I realized that I was really a monk and that's what I needed to do. So it was through photography that I found my way into the Dharma, and it's all in that book, The Zen of Creativity. It wasn't until I met Minor White and saw his photographs, and in fact the exhibit that I saw of his was The Sound of One Hand Clapping, it was called. And I then found out he was doing workshops, and I did one of his workshops, and it was a big transition for me, that workshop, because I had been meditating around the time I went to see him, but it put a whole new slant on everything, how that meditation fit with photography. And I did subsequent workshops with him, and I actually continued to study with him until his death in late 70s. But the more I got into the meditation, the more I realized I needed a teacher, and my first teacher was Soa Nakagawa, who was not only a Zen master, but also a calligrapher and painter, poet, no drama, he studied. So he was an artist. And then I went from him to Maizumi Roshi, and I mean, creating art to me is like making love, you know, you don't analyze it or judge it or think about it, it happens. You know, why I'm attracted to nature. I mean, I went through a period of time where, before I met Minor White, where I did some abstract work, but mostly it was documentary. Of course, that was during the Vietnam War, and photojournalism was big, and I was doing a lot of that sort of photography, photojournalistic photography. But I also was living in the city, and that probably had a lot to do with it. Now I live in the country. I mean, I walk out the door and nature's all around me. So I guess photographers photograph what they see, and what I see mostly is nature. And we do a lot, environmentalism is an important part of the training that we do here. And nature was a very important part of Zen. But keep in mind that a photograph, I mean, look at what a photograph is. It's like a 60th of a second, or 120th of a second, or 1,000th of a second sometimes. So it's the moment, right? And the moment, you know, the moment is a fleeting thing. You know, it arrives as it departs. But the moment is where our life takes place. And unfortunately, most of us miss it. We're preoccupied with the past, which doesn't exist, it's already happened. Or we're preoccupied with the future, worrying about the future. It too doesn't exist, hasn't happened yet. And while we're so preoccupied, we miss the moment-to-moment awareness of our life. And that's where our life takes place. We miss the moment, we've missed our lives, you know. So that's the importance of the moment. But when I photograph, what I try to do is get out of the way and let the photograph happen, let the camera photograph by itself. And I think that that's the heart of the Zen aesthetic and the arts of Zen. The brush paints by itself. The shakuhachi plays by itself. The dance is the dancer. The camera photographs. And when I teach photography, I ask people, for example, I use koans, visual koans. And the visual koan is an apparently paradoxical question that I assign to a student that can only be solved visually. a typical visual koan is make love with light. Photograph a feeling of love that you have for some person, place, or thing other than the subject. So the subject of your love can't be photographed. You have to find a visual metaphor for it. And I ask people to go out without any preconceived notion of what they're going to photograph. But the problem is the minute the words are coming out of my mouth, they're deciding what they're going to photograph. And I tell them to not do that, to go out in a spirit of openness, receptivity, awareness, and let the subject find them. When they find the subject, a resonance begins to happen, a kind of energy that's going back and forth between the photographer and the subject. And I ask them to sit in the presence of their subject before they start setting up and getting ready to photograph. Wait to be acknowledged. Wait for permission. Whether it's a rock, a tree, a person, a frog, it doesn't matter. Wait for that permission and you'll know when you got it. Then you set up. And you standing there poised with your shutter release in hand. And subjects are always changing. Nothing is fixed. Everything is in a constant state of becoming, and particularly on a day like today, where the clouds move over the sun, and sometimes the sun is out bright, shadows are deep, and a rock will look ominous. That very same rock, when a cloud moves over the sun, becomes very soft, the shadows fill, and becomes very sensuous. Same rock, minutes apart. So the photographer waits, and when that resonance peaks, the shutter is released. When the shutter releases, when that click happens, that buzz happens, if there's a feeling of completion, the process is over. You bow to the subject, thank it, when you leave. If you don't get that sense of completion, you keep going until that happens. So that's the process. It's a process of discovery. Just like enlightenment is a process of discovery. We already have it. We're born with it. We die with it. But what Zen is about is the process of discovering that fact for oneself.